We have all been there, in a hurry to defrost, so I'm gonna show you a method that'll hopefully save you some time. For this experiment, I have one of my stainless steel pots. You need something with a flat surface that'll lie flat on your counter. You could use something like 2 baking dishes that are metal. I have some small sheet pans, or even a couple cast iron skillets. This is the heavy way to do it, uses a little more extra muscle. So I'm gonna continue on, try a few different variations and see how this goes. I'm gonna try this method out with a pot. A lot of the versions of this I've seen just use a standard pot. So one upside down. I have 2 versions of this. Just split some ground meat in half, flat. You want a lot of surface area, so that's what's gonna help here. Have things flat, have things wide and as thin as you can get them. I could have frozen this in a larger zip top bag. That would have given me a little bit more surface area, but we're gonna go with this as our experiment. And then I'm gonna get another pot to go on top. Now, doesn't this look silly? The idea here is that metal conducts and transfers heat better than just air. You can also do this in water, but metal is supposed to be more efficient at this than even the water technique of putting your items in a bowl of cold water and letting it defrost that way. So we're gonna try this out. Now, I have seen versions of this where the top pot has water in it, but you can see this Jenga tower I have going. If I put cool water in here, there's no way that this is not gonna topple over at some point. So I wouldn't recommend the method where you add additional water in the top pot. I would just use this metal technique, see how it works for you. So I'm gonna let this go for a little bit and I'm gonna set up a few more variations to see if any of them do a better job at defrosting. If you have anything packaged in the styrofoam, I would suggest removing it. Styrofoam's gonna be an insulator. It's just gonna keep it colder. It's not gonna transfer out the bottom. I can already tell, like, it doesn't even feel cold on the bottom of here because of the styrofoam. So let's open this up. Maybe I will get these burgers split apart. There we go. There's those 2. What I'm going for here is maximum surface area, so nothing stacked on top of each other other than our pots or pan stack. All right, burgers, get the air out. Let's see if the baking sheets are the right size. Just barely, but hey, let's go with it. It'll do. Now, isn't that a burger? You know, have you ever had your burgers with a little sheet pan buns? Let's get these brats out of here. No matter what, defrosting is gonna be a waiting game. That's why it's always best to just plan ahead, give yourselves a few hours, or plan the night before, take something out of the freezer and put it in the refrigerator. But then life is life. Sometimes it's out of our control. We need to defrost something super quick. So you can try out this method yourself. It just makes me so ridiculous. It's only been a few minutes. This is the frozen one. There's no like squishy parts on it yet. Taking a little peek here. Oh, there are squishy spots already forming and I can see liquid in there. And this has only been like 5-ish, under 10 minutes. There's already soft spots. Get out of town. Yeah, this still has a ton of ice. This has no more ice. I can see liquid. I can see soft squishiness. I did not expect this to work. But here's what's interesting. On the bottom is a little squishy where it was touching the plate, but the air above still kept it kind of cool. And it's a bit of a cool day here. It's not super hot, super warm. That is interesting. Okay, let's keep this going. Sometimes these hacks look a little weird. You stacking pots and pans. If it works, it works. When it comes to items like seafood defrosts really quickly in water, and many vegetables or produce, you can just cook from frozen. That's totally fine. When it comes to meats and proteins, you definitely want to defrost them. The microwave is usually the least effective option. It's not gonna defrost evenly and it ends up cooking pieces, and it's really unreliable. It depends on your microwave. So I would choose the water method, or try this if it works. A big thing that's gonna help you out here is packaging and freezing your proteins properly. So this really is only gonna work for maybe ground meat, something flat like these burgers or the bratwurst I had. I don't think this will work as well for something like a chicken breast that's uneven, because it's just not gonna fit correctly on there. It's gonna be lopsided. So maybe if you had thin, pounded out chicken breasts, maybe that. There's a few caveats with this process. The ingredients have to be laid flat and as much surface area as possible. You have to have 2 pans or 2 dishes that fit the surface area. And there's something I'm thinking about the height of that pot. that may be better versus this that's a little bit more closer to the counter, so you're not getting as much air circulation underneath. I don't know how much that has to do with it. So depending on what pot or pan you're using, this may affect how much it rapidly thaws. And the material it's made of, like this is a coated aluminum pan, still pretty cold. Frost is still there, but once again, this prepackaged chicken thighs, they're pretty lumpy and it's still pretty thick, so this may take some extra time. Brats, how you doing? The brats! Yo, the brats are already squishy. Look how soft they are already. Whoa, okay. The cast iron may be the winner here. I think maybe because it's so thick, like anything with a thick layer of metal might do better too. The heavy duty, and then there's pressure here too. The cast iron's so heavy, as it melts, it's like squeezing down the soft stuff and getting more contact with the metal. So maybe that's helping out too. 2 cast iron skillets is the way to go. And if you're out there saying, I don't have 2 cast iron skillets, you should probably have 2 cast iron skillets. I have like 4. There's times and places where you need to cook 2 things in a cast iron skillet. If I ever won the lottery, there would be subtle signs. So I'm gonna let everything hang out for a little longer and check back in 10 minutes. I did a little switcheroo here. I put 2 of the burgers on the cast iron because I feel like the cast iron was doing a better job of redirecting all that cold and helping it thaw quicker. Because these brats, this has been maybe 30 minutes total for me in real time, and these brats are almost completely defrosted, and I've disturbed these the least. So that's proving the point pretty well. Now these are my 2 burger examples. So these are now pretty soft. Once again, they were thin, like they're a little firm in the middle, but I'd probably still throw these on the grill just like that. You can actually throw them on the grill kind of frozen anyways, but still for these purposes, they're defrosted enough that I would just cook them up. And this has been maybe another like 5 minutes on the cast iron. Now let's check the one that was just on the aluminum. They are soft, but they're much firmer. Like this one is almost completely defrosted. So my takeaway here, if you have 2 cast iron skillets, 2 cast iron pans, use those. The weight of them is gonna help. The thickness of the metal is gonna help in this defrosting method. Something like the aluminum is very light and thin, so it does help. This is way better than if I just left them out. Maybe in another experiment, I would have had a couple burgers just sitting on a plate, but this does help quite a bit. Let's see this one. It's still not even a little bit. These kind of pans, your baking dishes, probably not gonna work. Now let's go back to this one. The control, still a lot of frost. Basically, nothing's defrosted here. This has just been sitting out on a plate. Yeah, it's still frozen. Might as well just kept that in the freezer, just tossed it in the refrigerator. Now here's the real example. Let's remove that. Yep, I've got soft burger meat all over, top and bottom. This is the method. And this is pretty thick still. I still probably should have froze this in like a larger gallon size bag so it was like super, super thin and flat. So this is another tip in itself. Whenever you're freezing, go ahead and freeze your meats, your ground meats, anything you have as flat as possible. It's gonna help with defrosting later. So I like to transfer it from the grocery store package into something flat. It saves space in your freezer too, especially if you have a compact freezer or maybe an apartment freezer. Freeze things flat. You can stack it all up, and then be sure to always just label with the date and what it is so you know. This metal thawing, it definitely really does work. I think the cast iron's the real winner here, and those are probably some of the easiest pans to do this with. They have a wide surface area, they're very heavy and stable, so they're not gonna be a Jenga tower that falls over. Your stainless steel pots and pans may vary. You just need to make sure that you have ones that sit flat. The handle of this one doesn't allow it to sit flat, so that's why I'm using it on top. So pots and pans, especially stainless steel with handles, may be a little bit more difficult. So you need something that's definitely flat and stable. Do this trick. This trick works. Requires some specific things like the dimensions of the pots and pans, making sure things are frozen and flat, but it definitely works. We got winning solutions here. And this is just when you're in a pinch for sure. I would definitely make sure you don't have this out too long. Food safety rules, you don't want your thawed meat at room temperature for very, very long. Just be cautious of all that, but this technique definitely does work.